Okay, we are on to eyebrows. Let's see. So we're going to start with, I'm going to sew the eyebrows on. We glued the cheeks on. So I'm going to start with just threading a needle in case anybody needs a needle threading trick or a video of what I describe in most of my patterns. So I've got the white thread here, and you always want to start with a clean cut on the end of your thread. And then I usually wet the end of the thread to just smooth out all the fibers. And then the needle, you can just thread it this way, or you can wet the eye and just kind of fill it with spit. Sounds gross, but it works. And then I like to hold it between my thumb and my index finger like this, and I pinch it so I can almost like not see the end of the thread or just barely see it. And then I shimmy the eye of the thread over the needle. And it almost always goes right through. Once you get the hang of it, I think you'll like that trick. All right, so the other thing is I've started stitching with shorter thread lengths, and usually I use about 18 to 20 inches, usually like about half the length that I give people in the kits, because I find that I have more control and I get less tangles. The other thing is that I'm almost always stitching with a single thread unless I need the extra strength of two threads. I find that the stitches look finer and are less visible, so that's a change that I've made in the last couple of patterns as well. So then the next is knotting the end of your thread, which I thought I'd give you guys a quick little tutorial on as well. So this is you can do it however you want. If you have a way that you love making knots, go ahead and use it. But this is the way I usually do it. So it's called a quilting knot. So I lay the thread over my right index finger, and then I drop down the needle onto it, holding the thread in place. And then you go 1, 2, 3. You can do as many wraps or as few wraps as you want. Basically, this is kind of like, oh God, what is it? I don't know what it's called in boating, but it's like one of those knots that looks like a spiral. It's really small, but you get these really small organized knots, and the more wraps you do, the bigger the knot is, and the less wraps you do, the smaller the knot is. But you have really good control of the size of the knot, and how clean it is instead of being a lumpy mess. So now I've placed the eyebrows. I've actually placed them, so here's where my pattern placement is, but I decided this time to dip the eyebrow down a little bit to just see what it would look like if the eyebrow was a little less vertical. So I'm going to give that a go, and I'll just try to make the two sides be mirror image and matching each other. So what I do is I start with my thread and my needle on the back side, and so the knot catches. And then when you're stitching like an edge to a surface like this, you're doing a whip stitch. It's basically the same stitch that I use almost everywhere else, but you're doing it through a piece of fabric. So you have to do your each stitch in two parts. So there's front to back and then back to front. So here's my back to front, and I catch the edge of the thing I'm stitching on, like right here, the eyebrow, and then I go right along the edge of the thing I'm stitching on, through whatever the lower fabric is. Okay. And since this is a small piece, so I'm just trying to make my stitches sort of small and even. But again, we're going to be brushing all this out, so these stitches probably aren't going to show very much anyhow. So I go around and catch the edge. Like that. Oops. Oh, there we go. Lost the needle. Sometimes Sometimes filming and sewing makes me a little uncoordinated. I'm standing up and sewing and looking at my screen and my thing at the same time, so you're going to see me dropping things every now and then. All right. So I think that's our last stitch on that one. And then I'll show you about doing a knot on the back side. Okay, so there we go. I'm going to set that down here and see if I can show you how the knots work. So I like to do ending knots so that they're really securely against the surface of the fabric and not sort of, you know, so there's not a knot kind of hanging off here that makes that last piece of thread be able to pull back through to the other side. So to do that, I do this thing. So this looks awkward, right? So I've got my left hand and I'm twisting over like that. But basically I'm just crossing the thread. So I'm gonna do that one more time, right? So we go with my left hand and I cross the thread. So now I've got all of the fingers of my left hand through the hole, and that's helpful. And then I take the needle and I switch hands. So now my thumb and index finger have the needle, and I'm going to take the loop that was on my left hand with my right hand. And so here I've got my pinky, ring finger, and middle finger inside the loop. And that is also useful and important because when you move these apart, so on this side I want to pinch the thread so I don't lose the thread in the needle on my left side. And on my right side, I'm going to open these fingers and draw that crossing right down to the surface of the felt. And then while that's taut, I want to put a thumb on it. So, and then you pull. And that's going to give me a knot that's right at the surface. So I'll do that one more time. So I cross, get the whole, oops, that's not graceful. Okay, hold on. Cross, get all the fingers inside. Take the loop with my last 3 fingers on my right hand, draw the crossing down tight to the fabric, and then bring my thumb over. And that gives me nice, clean knots. Let's see if we can bring our focus in here. Okay, yeah, so there it is. There's the back side. And so that is cheeks and eyebrows. Cheeks and eyebrows, you can either glue them or you can sew them. And I'll stop here and I will move on to the dart video next. Alrighty, see you soon.